When you're asked to explore your implicit bias or your privilege and you're not practiced in that, you automatically enter unstable ground or uncertain ground. And that can be used to the advantage of those who would shape your thoughts on this matter. Because privilege is not a empirically quantifiable term or idea, it is very hazy and one has to assume a lot of things about it, how it operates, why it operates, where it comes from, and needless to say, what do you do with privilege? Do you just recognize it? Do you repent for it? Do you somehow squash it? Do you tithe it over to something else? What do you actually do when you, if you can even ascertain how much privilege you actually have, whatever that means? What do you do with that knowledge? What do you do with that information? It seems to me to be a way to enforce suggestibility onto people. And insofar as it doesn't have a definite origin or a definite outcome, it can be used for any given purpose. One can use that to introduce into the student of privilege or somebody who's workshopping their privilege any number of ideas that have just as tenuous grounding in reality, such as racism being everywhere, omniscient, and the experience of this group being one unit of experience that you can consider to be oppressed, and this other group being privileged. It collapses everything down because it's so indefinite, because there's nothing to stand on. I had a discussion with my elder, I guess one of my elders, but my chief elder last night, and he was expressing how white people went around the world and conquered the world because they thought they were better than everybody else. And I'm like, well, doesn't Christianity do the same thing? Doesn't every system of thought ever instituted do that, saying, I am better than you, therefore follow what I want you to follow? And what about your privilege of humor? What if I am very witty and you're not? What should I do with that particular form of privilege? What if I see the humor in things and you do not? Is it my privilege to show you the humor in things, or is it your oppression that you don't, and so I should stop seeing the humor in things? But let's say you go down that path. I wanted to perform my privilege seminar. I wanted to show everybody how privileged I am, and you can go through and express that and explore how you do that. But every time that I enter into that discussion, it just ceases making any sort of sense to me. Why does it matter if life is better for me than it is for you, generally speaking? The only thing that really matters is what I do with the life that is better or worse than you. If I'm concentrating on how good my life is, if I look out my window upon this crazy ass ecosystem with mice and prey and predators and all that just roaming around and buzzing around and pollen just spurting out of these horny trees, should I overlay my enjoyment and my gratitude for having that landscape with some sort of moral weight with those who do not have what I have access to? And what happens when I am grateful, when my gratitude is telescoped and is chained to disparity of other people? How far can I go with a gratitude? What does that chain my gratitude to? Are you supposed to be grateful for your privilege? Would that not be positive? I think that the moral point of discussing privilege is to chain you to a guilt. A guilt for what? A guilt for histories, a guilt for systems, right? Which includes a hubris that a human being can change the systems that we're wrestling with. I am trying to change a system of thought called wokeism or called social justice. I'm trying to change a certain form of Puritanism by explaining why I disagree with it and interacting with it in such a way that it becomes more and more malleable, less and less rigid and certain of itself. Because if I can do that, then people can actually start to interact with the complexities of the world. But people resist that because of the sense of urgency that is stapled upon this conversation right now. It's so urgent that we all read these books. I'm receiving email after email after email of company after company after company assigning the same books. Robin DiAngelo, that Kendi fellow, Abram Kendi, anti-racist guy who wants a anti-racist amendment to the Constitution, which will establish an office of equity that will go around and examine every single policy for possible outcomes, right? To make sure that every aspect of our government is equalizing everybody at every step of the way, making a fair world. Is that not sinful to be against a fair world? Is it not foolish to suppose that the people who are fighting for the righteous cause are themselves foolish? Are they not all already right in their modes and in their outcome? You look at history, you say, well, it hasn't happened yet, guys. It hasn't happened yet, but that doesn't mean it can't happen again. It can't happen in the future. It can't happen right now. I guess what I'm against is a rigidity of thought, is being forced into some sort of suggestible state. As an artist, I resent people that use morality to cause me to be suggestible. Because I've worked so hard, probably failed, mostly failed at becoming somebody who is suggestive in an artistic way, to play with ambiguity in a way that frees meaning, that expands meaning, that expands the potentiality of the devices of meaning. Whereas activism is inherently, on an aesthetic level, activism is my sworn enemy because it collapses meaning, not because its cause is unjust, but because it collapses meaning. It intrudes upon the experience of life all of this certainty. And all of this can be disregarded because the stakes are so high. To end racism in our time, to fix the systems. Should we not be fixing the system? Should I not get on board with the fixing of the system? What if that fixing is so fixed that there's no humanity left in that world? What if we can afford to question their righteousness? What if we can afford to poke fun at those who are fighting for the downtrodden? What if we punch down a little bit and punch to the side and punch up a little bit to a certain degree to make sure that everybody's alive? You know, pinch your idols. They just might get a little cheeky. Privilege. What do I do with that? What do I do with that? I keep on pressing people. What do I do with my privilege? What do I do? How much do I have? What do I do with it? What do I do with it? What do you want me to do with it? You want me to give it away? How do I know I have it? In what way do I have it? Is it because I'm speaking English? Is it because I'm speaking English with such pretty blue eyes? Is it because I'm speaking English with a tonality that I practiced and constantly fail at? At what point does all the work I've poured into my life get invalidated by the fact that other people have to pour more work into their life to get a fraction of what I have out of my life? Is it not enough to be grateful and to want to lift people up? And is my lifting up not somehow Luciferian? Say, look at all of your order. Look at this righteous order that you've created. And I see it. I see what you want. And it looks like prison to me. And that's only because I'm privileged enough to see how imprisoning a system of belief that allows for only certainty to exist within it is. These people are not artists. Robin DiAngelo's not an artist. She's not a scientist either. She's a demagogue. And I don't follow demagogues. I don't follow demagogues. They irk me from the start. From the first moment that I interacted with her lecture at Evergreen State College, where she said that white people need to listen to her. White people need to not question her. That either you're weak or you're a frigid bitch to think that you can accept people from questioning you, that you can enforce suggestibility on them. And what's the cost? What's the cost of defying this? I get aligned with a certain group and get disparaged by another group. And I diminish my capacity to reach people, right? I become enslaved to a fanarchy of people who agree with me and agree against them. And then I just get completely exiled by the people who need to wake up a little bit in their wokeness. You need to learn a little bit more freedom of thought if they want to actually engage with life beyond these cosmic terms. These cosmic terms, systems, racism, so universal, so diffuse, so urgently you need to attack this and change things. But what are you actually changing in your urgency? If you look at the way that people behave when they're urgently caused to champion something so diffuse, so systemic as injustice, watch how they behave. Watch how unhinged they become. Meanwhile, STEM is canceling itself. Academia is canceling itself. It's taking a day of absence. We're having a worldwide day of absence this Friday, coinciding with Evergreen's graduation ceremony. The class of Evergreen 2020 was prophecy. They started out their freshman year instigating a protest that was heard around the world. And now, for their graduation ceremony, which is virtual, every part of academia is now performing the day of absence that a lot of people found so shocking. Well, there's a lot of things that we found shocking 3 or 4 years ago that are par for the course. But I think, if I may be a little bit self-congratulatory, maybe that's not the right term, but I think that for every Jamil and Naeem Alo, you're going to have a Brett Weinstein and a Benjamin Boyce. I think that that's going to be the case. You're going to have people who champion the cause. You're going to have a whole bunch of quiet people. They're just shuffling along. And then you're going to have a couple of upstarts that will become grifters for the fact that they don't belong in polite society anymore. Maybe that's enough for now. I'll talk to you later.